promoting businesses and organizations to help them reach their full potential. Lighten the path to the success of your business. Enhancing the lives of our listeners by talking about things that matters most. Helping you to shine your light emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, and physically. Spreading positive vibes. You've got it locked and you're listening to Light Vibrations, brought to you by Lyte Communications right here on CBN Radio 90.9 FM. And now your host and our director, Natasha Letza.
Hello, you've got it locked and you're chilling with your girl Tasha T here, bringing to you another episode of Light Vibrations. And as promised, as we continue our conversation regarding the mental health and psychosocial support project, which is sponsored by the Pan American Health Organization, the Ministry of Health and Social Development, and the BVI Health Services Authority. Today we have with us Dr. Virginia Rubain here to talk about emotional intelligence. Welcome, Dr. Rubain.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. As you know, we're here with regards to promoting mental wellness and, promoting the mental health and psychosocial support project, something that you've been involved in from its inception. I want to now talk here today about emotional intelligence as we seek to build resilience within our community, right? So start us out by talking about what is emotional intelligence and how important it is to our mental wellness.
Emotional intelligence essentially speaks to our ability to identify and manage our own emotions as well as helping others to manage theirs. So that's emotional intelligence in a nutshell.
And how do we calculate emotional intelligence? It's similar to how you calculate IQ.
I like to conceptualize it from that perspective. Sometimes I use chronological age. I usually say, well, this person has the emotional functioning or the emotional intelligence of a 2-year-old. If I want people to understand where somebody is. So an emotionally intelligent 2-year-old is pretty much a narcissist who wants whatever they want, when they want it, how they want it, and failure to produce what they want will result in a tantrum. They don't yet have empathy. They don't understand another person's perspective, and they're just learning the concept of no. So when I am trying to describe where somebody is emotionally, I will use chronology. Well, they have the emotional intelligence of a 10-year-old, and you think about where a 10-year-old is developmentally.
But is there some kind of formula to calculate it? I mean, is there a test you take to figure out how emotionally intelligent you are?
Well, there are lots of objective measures out there that measure your personality, and in measuring your personality, we get a snapshot into how you manage your emotions. So if there's a specific test for emotional intelligence, it escapes me now, but a lot of the tests that we use in the workplace, like Myers-Briggs, which tells us what kind of personalities our employees will have in the workplace, we're very often talking about your emotional intelligence. So they measure it to some degree. Yes.
Interesting. So what are some characteristics of emotional intelligence?
So basically, people who are emotionally intelligent are self-aware. They have empathy. They're able to pay attention to what's happening around them, meaning they're able to read other persons in terms of what they're saying, their nonverbal cues. Emotionally intelligent people are insightful. They understand what's happening inside of them and what's happening in the world around them. And they're just basically aware.
So in terms of the self-awareness, right? So what do we need to know about self-awareness to help to build our emotional intelligence?
Well, self-awareness is basically being able to see yourself. And I had a lovely presentation this morning, and one of the things that I kept saying to the people that I was presenting to, you have to know when you're the common denominator. So if you keep finding yourself in similar, if not identical situations, but the people are different, you're the common denominator. And I often, when I'm working with clients and they say, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. Well, I can tell you why, because you're engineering it. You're participating in it. You're the common denominator. Sometimes you hear males or females make very broad generalizations like all men are dogs. No, all men are not dogs, but you're selecting men who have particular characteristics in common. So you have to take responsibility for that. All women are bad. All women can't possibly be bad. What are you doing, sir, that's eliciting behaviors or reactions from these different women from different walks of life who the only thing they have in common is you? Yeah.
Dr. Ruben, I know if you're ready for this talk here. I know if you're ready for this talk that you just brought up here with this self-awareness, because it's so true, because in too many times we repeat our same problems over and over.
Our same patterns that result in problems.
That result in the same problems. You're in an abusive relationship and you keep finding men that are abusing you. You it's like, it's crazy, but why can't we see ourselves? You said if we're the common denominator, no, we're going to take God off his throne and say it wasn't us, it's this person. Why is it so hard for us to see ourselves and to admit to where we're going wrong and then turn around and learn from that so we don't repeat it again?
So part of emotional intelligence is ego strength. And your ego is a part of your psyche that balances your desires with the demands of the environment, the social environment that you're in. A lot of people don't have the ego strength to say, I made a mistake. A lot of people don't have the ego strength to say, I grew up with damaged people who damaged me. I see a lot of people trying to venerate and worship parents who are abusive, who were neglectful, who are just all around hateful, and try to rationalize, well, they didn't burn me on the face with an iron, but they called me stupid every day the Lord sent. So we very often don't develop ego strength because we grew up in households where when we get feedback from our environment that says that we are the issue, people tell us, no, you're not the issue, it's them. And then eventually you're a 40, 50, 60-year-old person who can't keep a job, who can't maintain a relationship. And then it's really hard to believe that you're not the problem. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have something in the field that we call flying monkeys. We have flying monkeys that enable our behavior.
Who would these flying monkeys be? Your friends?
Your friends, your family. We tend to surround ourselves with people who are going to tell us what we want to hear rather than what we need to know. So sometimes we have a little breakthrough of insight, and I might say to my girlfriend, do you think that I was at fault when I did XYZ? And because she is my flying monkey, because she doesn't want to tell me the truth, because she doesn't want to hurt my feelings, because she may have the same problem that I have, birds of a feather flock together, she has a vested interest in telling me, no, you're in the problem. But the evidence says otherwise. The reality is I keep having the same interpersonal difficulty over and over and over again. And I'm having it with different people. So the issue lies with me.
But what happened with those persons who you bring an issue about them to the person, and they don't even care what you have to say? They say, listen, that's how I am, and I ain't going to change. And these people who are so opposed to change, they hold on to it. They hold on to negative behaviors and negative patterns it's some sort of savior. They do not want to admit their faults, even when it's presented to them.
So then you understand why we have a whole cachet of elderly people in the hospital that nobody wants. Because what happens to these people as they age out, bad behavior becomes less and less cute. And so people start leaving them. People start abandoning them. You know, when you encounter somebody in their 40s or 50s and they don't have at least one friend that they have had for 20, 30 years, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. You know, why don't you have any friends? Oh, I don't like to tell people my business. I don't trust people. I don't like to be around people like that. No, that's not why you don't have friends. You don't have friends because you can't keep them. You can't keep a friend. So people start abandoning them. Their adult children leave them because of their toxic behavior, and they become elderly and they have absolutely no supports. That's when they really, really get exposed.
I always say that to myself too, in terms of, you know, when people start to abandon the elders. You know, it's not something that is just done haphazardly. That is a whole history, 60, 70 odd years of hurt and pain. Not that is good, but in terms of, you know, how do we ensure that we don't, you know, that those same type of situation don't befall us?
Well, we have to start telling the truth, and not the social media truth, the real truth. But we now live in an era where everything is offensive to everybody. And my philosophy for 2021 is, if you like it, I love it. So if you are engaging in toxic behavior or ineffective behavior or inappropriate behavior, it's just not worth it to me to say anything to you. I can't be bothered. I don't want to engage in a conflict to help you help yourself. And that's what it's become. Because unless you're telling people what they want to hear, unless you're stroking their ego, unless you're making them feel good about themselves,
You're a hater.
Well, let me be a hater in my corner by myself.
Definitely.
Peace and love to you. So people who genuinely care and have the emotional intelligence to say to you, hey, you know, you really need to look at this. We can't be bothered. It's not worth the fight.
And that's true. And I do it myself. I always pick this scripture. I'm not sure where it comes from in the Bible, but I say, I am not throwing my pearls to swine.
Right.
You know, so if from me, by all my conversation, I could tell what, like you said, like your emotional intelligence, what kind of level of height you want, whether or not you're ready to assimilate the information that I have. And if I start talking and you start carrying on in a certain way, I leave that alone.
Well,
Because
it's an act of care, but people don't realize it's an act of caring when somebody takes the time to give you honest feedback.
Definitely.
And I think that's why we're seeing people's emotional intelligence decrease over a period of time, because if you don't have accurate data, how do you adjust? How do you improve? Yeah.
Definitely. So now that we identify that most of the problem with emotional intelligence is that lack of self-awareness or ability to kind of change or to acknowledge some of the issues about some of our shortcomings, you know, let's talk a bit about the self-regulation part, because I guess if we could regulate ourselves a little better, we will be a little bit more self-aware. Talk about that, the synergy between the two, and what we can do to build or to promote self-regulation.
Well, in order to self-regulate, you have to know about yourself. You have to know what your thoughts are. You have to know how those thoughts influence your feelings and how those feelings motivate your behavior. But some people are so compartmentalized. Like one of the things I find quite humorous, I will say to a client, tell me how you feel. Well, I think that it wasn't fair. That's not a feeling. But because their emotional vocabulary is so limited, and because we've not been taught how to differentiate between a thought and feeling, it is very difficult to be aware of your thoughts, to even counter them. Like, let's say you're having a series of negative thoughts that are leading you to have feelings of sadness and hopelessness. If you don't even realize you're having a sad thought to begin with, how do you go in now and change that thought to improve your feelings if you're not even aware. So
But I think people are aware of their thoughts, but to me, I feel as though people feel like they are controlled by their thoughts and not that they control their thoughts.
well, that might be right. It's been my clinical experience that people very often don't know what their thoughts are. You're sitting down and you imagine, like, what's the best analogy I could use? A subway train. A subway train passes you and it has like 15, 20 cars. But this train is moving at 90, 100 miles per hour. Can you see every single car that pass?
No.
No. And it's the same thing for people have racing thoughts, People have racing thoughts and they're having so many thoughts at the same time that it becomes difficult to tease out which exact thought soured their mood and led to them having a tantrum in public.
Yes.
Why did you do that? It's like when you ask little kids, why did you do that? And they say they don't know. They literally don't know. Because at that age, they haven't learned to differentiate between the thoughts and the feelings and how it influences the behavior. So when they say, I don't know, they really don't know. But is it acceptable for a 40-year-old to say that they don't know? But sometimes they really don't.
But they don't, because they feel like they're apart from it.
Right.
To me, like before I got a better appreciation or control over my thought processes, sometimes you and like you said, it's like a train. So you're mad at something and then something else comes. It's like a lot of peaks and valleys, and next thing you know, you're thinking about something that probably pissed you off from 2-3 years ago or 2 or 3 hours ago, and then you're just on a whole cycle of everything that's pissed you off coming to the forefront, and bam, whoever in front of you, get all of that. But I been in that situation enough times. I am starting to learn now how to control the thoughts, and that's what I was saying earlier in the well, I'm not sure if it was this one, but earlier we were talking, and I was talking about how it is important to go through your emotion. If you are upset,
experience it.
Be upset. If you have to, break a dish or whatever, to yell, scream, cry, whatever you have to do to go through that emotion, you go through that emotion, and then that should kind of clear it up.
Well, I don't know if being destructive is necessarily productive. I think the other big barrier to people experiencing themselves authentically, because that's what you're talking about, is that we lie to ourselves every day, 1,000 times a day. And that's another thing that impedes emotional intelligence. Because if you're not telling yourself the truth, how can you be aware of what's really going on?
And why don't we tell ourselves the truth?
Because we can't handle the truth.
From yourself or from other people?
We can't handle the truth from ourselves. Some of us have secrets so deep and so dark and so buried that if we were to actually resurrect them and look at them, we feel the world will end.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we add lies on top of the truth, and we pack on so many lies that we just don't even know what's fact from fiction anymore.
If you just tuning in, you've got it locked in, you're listening to 90.9 FM. Here, chill with me, Tasha T, here, bringing to you another edition of Lyte Vibrations. We're here with Dr. Virginia Rubain as we continue our quest to promote mental health and psychosocial support. This is a project that is being sponsored by the Pan American Health Organization, the Ministry of Health and Social Development, and the BVI Health Services Authority. And we're here talking about emotional intelligence, and what we really getting to find out is, here, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of us have the emotional intelligence of children. Why?
Because we just never learned. We just never learned. Communication is a skill and a fine art that has to be taught, that has to be learned.
From who?
Well, it becomes your parental box, whoever those people are, and then we go to school and we learn to socialize, and then we have more opportunities to develop our ability to communicate. But when you live in a community that is not good at communicating whatever challenges that they are having, whatever challenges, like for example, one of the things that shocked me when I moved to the BVI is the semantics that people engage in. So I was on a radio station and we were talking about sexual health as it relates to mental health. And this lovely elderly lady called in and she says, "You're not supposed to say that on the radio." And she's live, we're live. And I say, what am I not supposed to say? She says, "You're not supposed to say the S word." And I said, "Do you mean sex?" She says, "Yes, stop saying it." And I said, "But that's the clinical scientific term for what I'm talking about." She says, "I don't care what it is. You're not supposed to say it on the radio." So can you imagine the young people that she has charge over, or she's been able to influence? She has made sex taboo by virtue of them not even being able to say it. So I asked her, "Well, what would you prefer for me to say?" And she said, "Physical sharing."
But that's similar to what we name our female parts for children. You know, you
right.
your monkey, your this, your that. You know.
So then we grow up to be inarticulate adults.
Yes.
You know, when people ask me how I'm doing, and I say, "Well, I'm exasperated today," you know, I see where I shift left and right, like, exasperated, what does that mean? Okay, well, you be good. That's what I said. You know, one lady literally asked me how I was doing, and I told her, and she said, "But I didn't want to know all of that." I said, "But you asked me how I was doing." So even the tradition of saying, "How are you?"
Nobody want to hear your response.
No, she literally, she was so, because I just stood there and told her everything that was going on with me. He asked me how I'm doing. So when we have, now if I was a different person, the next person to ask me how I was doing, I would use a BVA script. "Not too bad. I'm all right. I'm okay." But what do those things mean, really? I could be dying inside or on the outside. So I think that communication is the cornerstone, right? And then there's trust. I have to feel safe enough to experience my emotions in the environment that I am in without ridicule, without judgment, without consequence. And then when I could accurately experience my feelings, then I'll be able to look at them and be more aware of them.
Definitely. And I think that parents could do a better job with teaching their children with that aspect, like you referenced earlier, that the somebody called you and, you know, their son was crying from a bad dream, and it's almost like they didn't know it was less
his
for him
cry.
to cry.
His crying made her uncomfortable. There was nothing wrong with his crying,
Right.
but whatever preconceived notion she has about how a boy, because he's only 10, how a boy is supposed to emote, she was uncomfortable. So, but I'm happy that she called me and spoke to me about it, as opposed to going to him and saying to him,
Don't cry.
"Don't cry. You're not supposed to cry." She sought expert advice. A lot of times we don't know. And you know, I say this now in 2021 with everybody with a smart device. I don't think it's appropriate anymore to say you don't know. You could be misinformed by what you find on the internet, don't get me wrong. But there's so much information freely and readily available. In my day, I had to go in an encyclopedia. I had no internet.
In a library somewhere far from your house that you had to walk to.
Well, I was very blessed because my mother had encyclopedia. She always believed in having the knowledge inside the house. But I remember the days, if I'm reading a novel and I didn't know a word, I would have to go get my dictionary, because not knowing the word was not acceptable to me. So I would go get my dictionary. So the joke of the day is, I was reading up, now we all have Kindles and all of these things, so now if you don't know what the word is, you just highlight it and the definition comes up. So the other day I was reading a paper book and I didn't know a word, and I have my finger on the book, the paper book, And I'm like, why is this thing not highlighted? And then it dawned on me, it's a book, right? So to say in 2021 that you have a parenting question and you don't pull up Google, you pulling up Google to see what's going on with Sati and Quavo, but you ain't pulling up Google to see how to address potty training with my child, or how to address puberty with my child, or how to address sexuality with my child. You could tell me what's going on with Beyonce when she gonna drop her next this or that or the other,
Yeah.
but you can't be bothered to type in, how do I talk to my child about sex, and see what information comes up. I'm not buying it anymore. I'm not buying ignorance as an excuse or an explanation anymore.
The perfect segue into our next component, which is motivation. So motivation, I mean, how do we motivate ourselves to be more emotional intelligent? What do we need to do?
Well, there needs to be incentives in the community. From where I'm sitting as a passive observer, and of course I can't see all of the Virgin Islands, it seems like the persons who are less emotionally intelligent seem to be doing well. And so that's no real incentive for me to evolve beyond the functioning of a toddler. If the person with the functioning of a toddler is going to be rewarded for that level of emotional intelligence. And I think we really need to look at that as a community and incentivize people being better and evolving beyond where they are. I tell my clients all the time, growth and development is a continuous process until you die.
Sure.
You will know you have arrived when it's time to go home. So you could never have too many emotional words. You could never have too many conversations about your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Like there's not enough time in the world for you to actually continue that process. So, you know, people who are emotionally intelligent though live longer. They have better quality relationships. They are happier. They are more successful because they have the words and the skills that they need to navigate a very complex world.
Definitely. And what about empathy? There's a lot of people out here, you know, sometimes, even with you reference the, you know, volcanic activity in St. Vincent, and, you know, all the things that we're going through on a level here with pandemic and other people's individual battles. And you know, you come around some people and some of the conversations that you're hearing, you know that they don't have one drop of empathy in their whole system. How important is empathy, or being able to empathize with persons to this process?
Okay, so I think we need to clarify the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is when we understand another person's plight or journey. Sympathy is the emotion we experience for the hardships. We feel sorry for people who have to go through difficult things. I think that we lack both in this community, but I don't necessarily blame people, and I will tell you why. Since 2017, we've been catching our tail feathers. There were the Noah and the Ark floods, August, then September, there was Maria. And just when we were on the cusp of normalcy, here comes Rona. They all have female names.
I was just about to say, why when the plague hit humanity, them naming that woman?
I don't know, girl. And I think people are literally dead inside. I think you cannot give what you don't have to give.
Definitely.
I can tell you personally, I am watching what's happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I can't muster the energy to feel anything. I don't have it. And it's not that I wouldn't help or I wouldn't do what I needed to do as a professional or otherwise. But as a woman, I'm just all traumatized out. I literally do not have anything else to give, you know? And it's funny. It's a running joke amongst my friends. Last year when the pandemic started, I told them I was looking for Godzilla. And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, Godzilla is coming. And we had been having a series of earthquakes and tremors. And I would get up and I would pull my curtain and look out into the ocean to see if Godzilla. I mean, now looking back in my mind's eye, I was like, what the heck were you doing? But I was literally looking for Godzilla. And when La Soufrière erupted, my friend said the volcano in St. Vincent has erupted. And without thinking about it, I said, Godzilla has arrived. And then she sends me a picture of that plume of smoke coming out of the volcano. My God, it looked like Godzilla.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And I said, oh, that's what the Lord was trying to tell me. Like, this is the next catastrophe that's about to befall the Caribbean. And I'm just not even moved by it. Like, my brand new house was destroyed by the storm. My life as I know it has been disrupted by the pandemic. What else? What else you want me to give you? I ain't got nothing.
Wow. Listen, Dr. Ruben, I hate to cut the conversation short, but if you believe 30 minutes has lapsed already. Mm-hmm. Wow. So we definitely have to come and invite you back, as we have so much more to talk about here as we continue to promote resilience and, you know, build this mental awareness and, you know, for us to be better. And it really touched me with what you said, you know, all traumatized out. Mm-hmm. You know, that's something we might need to have to tackle on the next show, because that is serious. A lot of people just numb.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's true.
Yeah.
So once again, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to this edition of Lyte Vibrations. Remember, it was brought to you by the Pan American Health Organization, the Ministry of Health and Social Development, and the BVI Health Services Authority.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Lyte Vibration. And don't forget to tune in this time next week as we continue to bring you life-changing information. Until next time.